Hello, and welcome to Work from Home Office Ergonomics. My name is Tim Pottorff, and I've been working from home since 1994. So I've learned a few things about being a work from home person. Over my career as an ergonomist, I've conducted about 30,000 or more ergonomics assessments for both industrial and office settings. And actually, in the early 2000s, I pioneered video assessments of office ergonomics workstations. A recent large project, I led the ergonomics effort for the nearly $500 million Zurich, North America headquarters outside Chicago. And in my spare time, I have written numerous articles that go in professional journals and publications. And I also speak regularly at regional, national, and international ergonomics and safety conferences. I also participate in volunteer positions in scouting, in safety groups, as well as in other organizations. I participate as an expert witness on ergonomics cases, and I'm the founder and owner of QP3 Ergosystems, which is a full-service ergonomics, safety, and industrial hygiene consulting company. So how are you doing? A lot of people who may be new to working from home may have experienced a lot of challenges. Challenges being ranging from kids being at home making noise, challenges from spouses being around, or just not having a good workstation setup. And so we're going to talk actually a little bit about all of those issues and try to figure out ways to help you improve your workstation so you can improve your comfort, your productivity, and the quality of the work you do. So working from home, there are a lot of different things we're going to be discussing. We're going to discuss injuries and illnesses. So those are really important, and they do happen to people who work from home. We'll talk about good seated postures, which is one of the most important things you can do at your work from home workstation. We'll talk about using the keyboard and mouse correctly and not having them positioned too far away, and techniques with using them to protect your body. We'll also talk about monitor use and positioning. We'll also talk about the use of handheld technologies such as smartphones and tablets and e-readers, because those could really affect the body as well. We'll discuss towards the end of the session, kids, pets, and general safety, so that, sort of how to work around and keep them safe as well. We'll talk about how to work from home and some of the tips and tricks and techniques I've learned over the years, as well as go through some items like equipment and accessories and assessments if you're still having problems after the session. Now, when we talk about injuries and illnesses, there are a couple different kinds. There's soft tissue injuries and illnesses, and there's psychosocial issues. Soft tissue injuries and illnesses are physical stress and damage to the body. So, for example, if I'm working in an awkward position, say I'm leaning forward and all the way to my upper body is now on my lower back, over time, my lower back is going to probably feel it. If I'm working with an awkward neck posture because my monitor's too high, over time, my neck is probably going to feel some discomfort. Or, for example, if I'm reaching out with my shoulders or arms or something like that, over time, my shoulders are going to experience some discomfort, some problems. And so what happens is there's physical stress and damage to the muscles, tendons, and ligaments of the soft tissues and joints of the body. And that's what we did with ergonomics. That's generally what we deal with. Now, psychosocial issues are stress-related issues. A person gets tense, they've got external things that are bothering them, and they tense up and their blood circulation goes down, and they are actually more susceptible to injuries and illnesses. Now, something that's really important to remember is that work from home cases are considered work related from a workers' compensation standpoint. So we need to do everything we can to make sure we're working comfortably, productively, and safely. And that's what we'll be discussing today. Now, when addressing the psychosocial issues, the stress-related issues, control what you can. Try to limit the amount and frequency of information, news, etc. that's coming in. If you have to turn off the TV, turn it off. If you have to turn off the radio, turn it off. If you have to set social media aside, set it aside. Turn it off. Focus on what you need to focus on. Try to negotiate work priorities. If you know that you got this project due today and next week is another project, focus on what you have to do today versus what you have to do next week. But then make sure you have a good set of priorities and a good plan for completing all your projects so that you don't feel any more stress than that it's absolutely necessary. Now, one of the things that's difficult to discuss, but it's really important, is that some people work from home, may be at increased risk for abuse, may have more interpersonal issues. Get help now. There's no excuse for abuse or anything of that sort. So get help. If you need help, if you know somebody needs help, help them get help. But again, reach out to somebody outside But again, that's a challenge when folks are working from, especially if there's several members of a household that are working together for an extended period that they're not used to be doing. Try to do what you can to address external stress, whether it's from information overload or interpersonal issues or whatever's coming in. Try to reduce that stress in your body. Try to get exercise. Try to get enough sleep. Makes a world of difference. And actually, when I feel stressed out, if I'm having sometimes having trouble getting through a project, figuring out what to do next, I'll go take a hike and take a hike with my dog, and it freshens, get some fresh air and sunshine, and it gets the exercise. And usually I can work through those problems when I do those sorts of things. And then I feel better actually when I get back. There's some things in life though that in the world you're just not going to be able to control. If you can't influence, you don't feel you can influence it, just let go. Try to let go and not worry about it. Again, turn things off, turn off the external stimuli, get away from it. And the best thing I can think of as far as letting go is a quote from St. Luke, is that to remember the past, plan for the future, but live for today. Live for today. I think that's critical, is focus on what we're doing right now. It's okay to look back to other good times, happy times. It's okay to look forward to the future. But right now, we've got to live for today. This is what we're doing right now. Now, good seated posture is critical in any workstation. It's probably one of the most important aspects of a person's workstation, whether in a regular office, whether in a home office. And one of the things I see time and time and time and time and time again, I've conducted quite a few office ergonomics assessments, is making sure the chair is sized correctly. One of the biggest problems I see is generally you see a small frame person sitting in a humongous chair, and it just doesn't work. The person's arms are winged out, they can't get all the way back into the seat because the seat pan's too deep and their legs are too short and then it's too tall, and et cetera, et cetera. So we got to have the right size chair. Now, a good chair will come in should come in about 3 different sizes: a petite version, a regular version, and a big and tall, or tall and skinny version. There are actually those out there, because not all tall people are big and wide. And so again, we got to make sure the chair is right for you. The next piece is making sure your feet are supported by the floor or a footrest. If you're not supported by the floor or footrest, you're probably going to tip forward in the chair. And what that does is takes you away from the backrest of the chair. So now all the way to my upper body, instead of being supported by the backrest of the chair, is now my lower back. So if I'm hunched forward, if I work forward a lot, I'm probably going to be more at risk for low back pain than if I'm sitting back in my chair. And so again, the feet should be supported with the thighs parallel to the floor. What that does is, and knees about 90 degrees. Now, what that does, it sort of tips you back in the chair. So again, your seat back is supporting your upper body, it's supporting most of your upper body weight. So there's a lot less stress on your lower spine. We'll be discussing seated posture in a few moments as well. When the shoulders relaxed, elbows about 90 degrees and close to body. And again, if the chair is too big, your elbow's going to be out like this in chicken wings. Chicken wings are great when we're for snack food. They're not great work positions. So again, we want to relax and have good circulation, slightly reclined in the chair. That's where we're going to be comfortable. We want to be comfortable. We want to be relaxed in that chair. And then we bring ourselves to that workstation instead of bringing our whole body to the workstation. We come up to the workstation with our chairs. That's where we're more comfortable. Now, a lot of consideration for chairs, but here are some of the primary issues you want to remember. First off, 5 good legs are critical for stability. A 4-leg chair is going to be more likely to tip over back or tip over forward if you're in the wrong position. So you got to have 5 good legs for a chair. Make sure the seat pan or what you're sitting on and the backrest are independent, because if they're stuck together, you're not really going to have a lot of ability to adjust the angle between your torso and your thighs. So you're going to tend to be lean forward a little bit and then put your internal organs into your belly and makes you look fat and all that good stuff. You want to sit back in the chair, have a little bit of a lean back, recline, so that we look better and we're more comfortable and more supported. And we want a padded seat, padded backrest, padded arms. And that's just for comfort. If we sit on a hard surface all day long, it's just going to be uncomfortable. So think about a set of bleachers at a ball game or a concert or something. After a while, they actually get pretty uncomfortable. And while the event may be exciting and interesting, The old saying is true that the mind can only absorb what the bottom can endure. So again, got to have a good padded seat. And the last piece is really, really important. There's the carpet casters and hard floor casters. There are two kinds of casters on chairs. One is a carpet appropriate caster you put on carpet floor. The other is a hard floor or softer caster that goes on hard floors. If you have the carpet caster on a hard floor surface, like tile or wood or vinyl, some nice vinyl flooring, then the chair's going to be too rolly and it's going to tend to roll out from underneath you. And there have been cases where a person actually had the wrong carpet caster on a hard floor surface chair, and then they went to sit down in the chair slipped out from underneath them, they fell, they hit their head and actually died. So again, it's something that does happen. You don't want it to happen to you, so make sure you have the right rollers on your chair. Now for chairs and seating, we talked a little bit earlier about not hunching forward. Again, you can sort of see in the photo on the left, person is sitting forward. That's not good. The best way to sit in a chair is actually stand up, grab the armrest of the chair, and then slide, get your bottom all the way back so you slide back into the chair. It actually tends to fit your body more like a glove, like a nice, good-sized pair of gloves. The armrest should lightly support the elbows. If the armrest is too high, you'll push your shoulder up. That's not good. If the armrest is too low, your shoulder's going to be down. Again, we want to balance your body out as best we can. And the other piece is do not reach for the keyboard and mouse. You can sort of see in the photo on the left, the person's reaching, hunch forward. Again, all the way their upper body is now on the lower back, and they're reaching forward. They're working for the keyboard and mouse at that point. We want them to work for us. So we want to bring those things closer to us so we can sit back in the chair so we can work a lot more comfortably. Now, some things to avoid from a seating position, and I'm asked this on a frequent basis, ball chairs. Ball chairs are used only for people who have experienced sports-related core body injuries to recover core muscle strength. So don't try to self-medicate. Don't use a ball chair if you don't have any support for your back. So then all the weight of your upper body is on your lower back, and then you have to constantly spend more time thinking about, okay, gee, how am I not going to fall out of the chair the next on the work I'm going to do? Same thing for the treadmill workstation. Treadmill workstation increases the risk for slip, trips, falls because again, you got a moving belt. And I've seen people in these workstations, they're on a conference call, trying to work on a laptop, they got the phone to the ear and the belt's going. That's just not a good combination. You're just asking for trouble, asking for an injury, asking for fall on your head or something. Kneeling chairs again. What they do is, remember we talked earlier about having the knees about a 90-degree angle? Well, the kneeling chair doesn't do that, doesn't allow you to do that. The knee is almost a zero angle, which actually reduces your circulation, places a lot of stress on the joints of the knee, tendons, ligaments, muscles. So it's a lot more stressful on your joints long term. Another thing to avoid is kitchen chairs. I know sometimes that might be what folks are stuck with, but if you are stuck with the kitchen chair, use a nice pillow, throw pillow or something that's comfortable to sit on, and wrap it with a blanket or something. That's still better than nothing. And then we'll talk about some actually relatively inexpensive chair options down the road, and some chairs actually are better than the what I call 2-hour chairs a person might get from a big box store. You need a real chair. You need a chair with a good warranty behind it, and it's built to be used 8, 10, 12, 15 hours a day, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. In this situation, person's leaning forward in her desk. And granted, if the chair's not perfect, you can see the armrests are fixed to the chair, so there's no adjustability there, and there's no adjustment between the backrest and the seat pan. Sometimes that's what we're stuck with. But what I noticed is she had her feet on the rungs of the chair, so it tipped her whole body forward. And all we did to bring her back in the chair and give her a more comfortable work position was put a little box about 3 or 4 inches high on the floor for her feet to rest on, and just tipped her back in the chair and did a world of good for her. So sometimes that's all we need. And granted, we can't always be perfect, but this is a way to use what you have available to you. Now, the other piece with desks is you need plenty of room for your legs and feet. You also need a little bit of extra distance, you have 2, 3 monitors. So if you have a lot of monitors, instead of doing this, you want to be far enough back. Then you also need to make sure your keyboard and mouse are close enough to you. Minimum width on the desk is about 30 inches. And again, you don't want the height too high, too low. You want to work at elbow height. So where my keyboard is, I need to be at about elbow height. I may need to raise or lower the chair. If you have an adjustable desk, you need to raise or lower the desk. But working at elbow height is a good rule of thumb. Doesn't matter whether you're in an office, doesn't matter whether you're working out in industry, in assembly, you want to work about elbow height. Now, when you use a keyboard and mouse, again, keep the elbows about 90 degrees near the body. Again, avoid those chicken wings. Wrists have to be straight. My wrists are straight. The tendons going through my carpal tunnel are pretty comfortable and they're straight, they're not being stressed. If I start bending my wrist, that's going to cause awkward position. Again, we want the shoulders relaxed. Sort of see a theme here, don't you? And wrinkles are bad. So if I'm typing and my wrists are wrinkled here, or wrinkled there, wrinkled here, wrinkled, is that wrinkles are bad. If you remember nothing else from the session today, is that wrinkles are bad. I'm not talking about the wrinkles from, wisdom and experience, but rather I'm talking about the wrinkles from awkward work postures. And it's not just your hands and wrists wrinkle. If I tip my neck back too far, I got wrinkles back here. Or if my monitor's too low, my neck's wrinkled right here. If I lean forward, then I got wrinkles in my belly. So again, wrinkles are bad, and just think about that when you see yourself working. Now, the keyboard positioning, we want to bring the keyboard close to the front of the desk, or if you have a keyboard tray, that's even better because you can bring it right next to you in a chair. And actually, that's what I use, is an adjustable keyboard tray. It gives me a lot of flexibility, and then I can put my desk up or down, or I can put the keyboard, because I move around, I fidget. And it's okay to move around while you're working, but we don't, again, want to lean forward or reach forward. You can sort of see in the picture on the left how the person's shoulders are hunched forward. And when we do that, the vertebrae in the upper spine actually start to push the discs out of position. And if you've ever seen an older person walk around hunched over, it's because the vertebrae have pushed the discs out of position. Then the vertebrae have actually bonded together, and they're actually forced in that position. The problem is when you start pushing those discs out of position, they start hitting nerves. And it's an excruciating discomfort back in the mid shoulders of the body, between the shoulder blades usually. So again, it's something you want to avoid leaning, reaching forward if at all possible. Bring things to you. If you can't see the monitor, bring it to you. Another piece is raising the document off the desk. Now, a lot of people leave a document on the desk surface. You can notice my neck, it's bending down, pretty uncomfortable. I use a document holder, so I actually can elevate documents. So I can, instead of bending my neck, I can just look over to my right a little bit. I can see it okay. Again, I'm not bending my neck like it's down here. Sometimes a 3-ring binder or a document holder, if you want to spend a little bit, is a good way to bring those documents up. Some document holders are actually attached to the side of a screen if you have an independent monitor. Some are actually desktop based. So again, don't have to spend a lot of money. Some folks will put a 3-ring binder literally right in front of the monitor behind the keyboard. That does actually a couple things. It tips the document to you, but also keeps the keyboard from sliding back. So it keeps the keyboard towards you. So lots of good stuff here. For mouse use, again, we talked about no wrinkles. Again, we want to use the mouse, the full forearm movement. No wrinkles. We don't want to do this. We don't want to wave at people. We want to do sort of a wave, if that makes sense. Now, for lighting and glare, there are a lot of issues. My home office, I had to move briefly last winter because of some damage in the house. So I moved up to the dining room. Now, a couple things I did here. One is you can sort of see the windows. The window on the left has the blinds pulled down. The window on the right doesn't. And so I set it up so I had my screen at a right angle to the windows. So instead of looking into the bright or having the bright light coming in at me from behind and bouncing off the screen in my eyes, the light could come across. I didn't have glare issues. So the screen was at the right angle to the window. Also, I avoided the overhead lights. Now there's chandelier in the dining room, and if it's in the wrong spot, it can be right over your desk. A lot of glare on the screen. So I made sure we were back away from that overhead light. And again, we talked about the blinds and shades, but again, do what you have to do to reduce that glare. You see in the photo on the right, you can sort of see where the person actually has to look at that bright window because of the location of the computer. Now, if they were to reorganize their office, what I would do is say move the shelves that are on the left side of the office somewhere else, pivot the laptop to the right side, and then have a little bit different arrangement for the workspace. But But again, they didn't have me to talk to when they set this up. And so it's important things and some simple things you can do to actually make life a lot more comfortable and a lot easier on you. Now for monitor screens, we're on the top of the screen, usually about eye level. And it doesn't matter where you're sitting or if you have a sit-stand workstation. Some folks have done various modifications for sit-stand workstation. They put stacks of toilet paper together, or they've done this or done that. But it doesn't matter where you're working, sitting or standing. You want to have that screen about eye level for normal vision. You want to align to the keyboard and mouse. We don't want the monitor over here and the keyboard mouse here, but right and lined up with each other. Now, if you do have two monitors, if there's one screen you use more than the other, you want to make sure that you have the monitor you use more on the side of your stronger eye. So my right eye tends to be stronger, so if I have two screens, I'm going to use the screen I use more is probably going to be the one on my right side. So again, that's something to consider. If you're bifocals or progressive lenses, the rule changes a little bit. In this situation, he has bifocals. His monitor's too high because he should be looking through the lower portion of lenses. That's how mine are set up. So bifocal progressive lens wearers, you lower the monitor. Again, it's sort of counterintuitive, but you got to lower the monitor if you're going to be using that lower portion of the lens to view your monitor screen. Now, a lot of kids that do homeschooling, a lot of kids have had schooling from home, and this is sort of how not to use a laptop. The Centers for Disease Control actually do not recommend the use of a laptop as a sole computing device. You want to have separate keyboard, separate mouse, and there's things we can do with the monitor to make sure those are positioned. We also have to think about kids too. Again, rolling shoulders forward, and so we want them to sit like an adult at a desk too. And just from these handheld technology and from digital devices, physicians and researchers are actually seeing spinal deformities in adolescents and teens. So we got to make sure that they're working well too. Now, laptop computers, as we discussed, don't want to use them by themselves. You need a separate screen if you can, separate keyboard and separate mouse. Separate keyboard and mouse are critical. If you do nothing else, separate your keyboard and mouse. Have a separate, simple keyboard. I use a small compact keyboard you can see in the upper left there, and it's relatively inexpensive. It doesn't have a 10 keypad, but so if you use the 10 key, you probably need one with the 10 keypad. But you see everything's close together. I've got my document holder up there. You want to achieve the optimal postures we've been discussing. If you don't use bifocal or progressive lenses, raise the monitor, set the laptop on a pillow, get things up. Again, you want to think about your neck posture, shoulder posture, elbow, wrist posture. And your shoulder and hips should be roughly lined up. So shoulders relaxed, elbows about 90 degrees, but again, lining the body up, supporting yourself. Now, for sit-stand workstations, the same principles apply as for seated work, except you want to alternate your postures frequently. Up, down, and so the benefit from standing workstations comes not from the standing all day. If I stood all day, my lower back would hurt, my lower legs and feet would hurt. But the benefit actually comes from the transition from sit to stand to sit. So the best case scenario is you don't need to spend more than 10-15 minutes of time standing. Then you sit back down. A good rule of thumb is if you got a conference call scheduled, start the call in a standing position. You go take a break, leave your desk if you have a sit-stand workstation in a standing position. You go take a lunch. At the end of the day, leave it standing. When you come back, then you're going to start standing, and after a while, you just sit back down. So it's a good rule of thumb to do that. Again, we don't want to sit all the time. We don't want to stand all the time. We want to alternate. Now, some just general safety things. First off, we want to try to eliminate trip hazards. So last fall when I had to move my office, did a couple of things. I used chairs, the chair to block access to the wires and cables, because right now my wires and cables in my regular office actually go into outlets right behind my desk. There's no trip issues or fall issues. It's a pretty good setup. The other thing is don't overload your household circuits. If it's got your house has older wiring or apartment, please be careful not to overload those circuits. And use grounded extension cords, and particularly you want to use power strips that are with surge protectors. So in case there's a storm or something, then your equipment's protected. And try to limit pet and child access to cables, wires, cords. So again, the chair reduces the trip hazards, and we've got 80, 75, 80-pound Labrador Retriever, so it helps keep him out of the way too. Now, best practices we'll go through when working from home. We'll talk about some best tips and practices and some furniture and accessory options and a couple homemade improvement options and talk about help. So first off, and I know this from personal experience, is hide the tape. Hide the scissors. Hide the scissors is no brainer. Tape, those kids are just going to get into it, make a big mess. Scissors, they can get hurt pretty seriously. Same with electric staples. Electric stapler, a small kid can get their finger in, they can actually puncture the finger with the stapler, with staples. Keep the paper out of reach. Again, they can make a big mess with that. Shredders, if you have a paper shredder, get that out of reach. Keep it unplugged. Keep it out. Keep it in an inaccessible place, because again, somebody with small fingers can really get hurt. Again, protect the wires and cables from pets coming in and chomping on them and chewing, etc. Handheld technology is really important. A lot of folks have hand, wrist, and neck issues. And this is my uncle. He's 96, and he likes his tablet, but he's got Parkinson's. So we got him a floor-mounted articulating stand to hold his tablet. He really loves it because it limits the stress on his hands. Now, other ways you can limit stress on your hands or wrists when using handheld technologies is reducing the length of the messages and actually using the voice to text option. Alternate fingers. So instead of using my thumb all the time, I can use my finger. I can move my finger around. Portrait orientation stresses my thumbs less than, say, a landscape, because I want to stretch my thumb farther from landscape. Again, use your support devices, and a headset's also critical. It's not in the picture, but my uncle also, we got him a headset, with a boom speakers, a boom mic, so he can actually work and doesn't have to hold the phone when we talk to him. So lots of different things out there, relatively inexpensive, simple, but just make good ergonomic sense. So how do you work from home? Find a dedicated space as best you can. When you find a dedicated space, then you have fewer distractions, fewer interruptions. Recently, I was talking to somebody that was on a phone on a very important call, and their two teenagers got into a disagreement, and the walls were shaking and the floor was rattling, and the younger kid in the house came crying and climbing on his lap, and it was just not a good situation. So try to find a dedicated space if possible. Set a schedule. If you're normally used to getting up and starting work at 7:30 or 8, set an alarm and get up and start work at 7:30 or 8. And if you are used to being in a regular office, find a time, if you usually stop at 5 or 6, stop at 5 or 6, close your machine down, because if you weren't working at a regular office, if you went home from a regular office, your computer's there, you're not going to see those emails there. Or the phone at the regular office, you're not going to hear it ring if you're at home. Write up a daily to-do list. I've done this for many years. It always helps me get organized, especially at the end of the day. Okay, what I get done today? What did I not get done? What I need to do tomorrow? What else do I need to do tomorrow? What I need to do down the road? Just before this webinar, I was writing down things I need to follow up on next month. The other thing is, don't eat lunch at your desk. Get away from your desk. You work a lot of hours, and it does a couple things. Again, get you up, get you moving, but also keeps crumbs and dirt and stuff away from your desk area. Again, we talked about this before, but take periodic breaks. Stretch your body. Some simple stretch, like some simple shoulder stretch across. A few seconds. Simple shoulder stretch across. 5-10 seconds to hold. Simple things like stretching, hands and fingers, stretching. Doesn't have to be a lot, it just helps. You sort of feel that the fingers and hands. It's okay to rub things a little bit, but again, simple stretches can really help you out. Prop up your documents. You don't make your body work in an awkward position if you don't have to. So prop your documents up so you can see them, see what you need to be working on. If you work from a tablet or other device, or I have a stand for my tablet, I use that to prop that up if I need to view things. Raise or lower your laptop screen as necessary. Again, avoid those distractions from your other screens. Turn off the information overload, reduce that. Now, there's a lot of furniture options out there, and we don't get any benefit from these, but Bodybuilt has a work from home package for about $1,000. It's an adjustable height electric desk with a chair. Steelcase has a pretty decent share, runs about $300. You know, Amazon has sit-stand desks just under $600. Han has a decent share on eBay. There's a second-hand share, but generally they're made pretty well for about $200. And then there's eBay. You can find sit-stand desks for a little bit over $300. So if you have the budget, you want to get some flexibility. You want to aim for flexibility. You want to aim for durability. So flexibility and durability, which you want to aim for. Fellows Gliding Palm Support is something I've actually used for years. It's a device you see here, and it actually attaches to the mouse. So when I use the mouse, I use that full forearm movement. It's really convenient. If you don't like that piece, that option, Gold Touch has what they call a neutral mouse, and it's the mouse, but they've got a platform built so again you keep a straight wrist posture. If you don't use a separate mouse pad like this, because then this is what happens when you move your mouse. You're gonna getting wrinkles, and that's just stressing the tendons going through the tunnel. I use a Bacher Alpizen S4840. They have offered a QP3 Ergo 20% discount to folks who order from this. You just have to go to them and give them the discount code. And then I think that's about $60. And then a notebook stand, which if you need to raise your laptop monitor, it can be a good option, or you can just use a couple of stacks of paper if you prefer that. And then some folks like what they call the ergonomic keyboard. Microsoft Sculpt keyboard is pretty decent. You get it on the web for about $60, because again, if you have a wider body structure and you come into your keyboard, you notice my wrists are bent. But this one lets you come in and keep your wrist straight, because the keyboard itself is angled. Now, here are a couple of homemade improvements. One is person had armrests on a chair that just were not comfortable. They were breaking apart. They were hard. So they wrapped some fuzzy material around them, used rubber bands, did the trick. Photo in the middle, she's working awkward. She didn't have enough support for her feet. She tipped forward in the chair, took a 3-ring binder and had her sit back in the chair. Made a world of difference. And sometimes we work from home, saying, what do I do with all my papers? What do I do with my files? One of the best things you can do is take those papers, take those files, and put them in a banker box or another cardboard box. It helps control them, helps control the clutter. So do simple things like that, and it makes life a little bit more comfortable. We do have other services out there. We do video assessments for work from home workstations. So if you just don't know what you're doing wrong, need some help, we're happy to help you out with that. We also have COVID-19 program reviews, best practices training. We're also actually doing assessments for hazard assessments for COVID-19 for and giving certifications, and that's actually the assessments are a CDC best practice. And we also have other on-site client services, for example, ergonomic safety, general liability, and industrial hygiene. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. And if you have any questions, I'm on LinkedIn, Tim Pottorff. Telephone number and email address are on the screen. But again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Now, we had a few questions that came up during the session. And one of the comments was talking about using a ball chair. And that's really important because, again, as I explained earlier, when you use a ball chair, you want to make sure it's for, usually for most folks, for sports-related core body injury. And the thing about the ball chair is, or other alternative chairs, is sometimes a person may have a medical condition that we don't know about, and it's okay to work with your doctor and make sure you find something that works. And I think with sitting and standing, we don't want to sit all the time. We don't want to stand all the time. We want to change around, and we're actually better off when we alternate between the two. And so folks, you just sort of have to find a good balance. And a couple other things that came up are work from home injuries and illnesses work related. And if you work for, they are. If you work for another company, I've worked with government agencies. I've worked with clients out in the field, and absolutely, I've done a number of on-site work from home assessments. I've done actually video assessments, which is in the world of COVID. That's where things are right now. And so sometimes if you need help with, if you want to feel better, contact me via the email or the phone, and we can schedule something. We actually have on our website a way to order a video assessment of your workstation. And some other things that came up were along the lines of, what are one or two things to be more productive when working from home? And some of the things, you want to achieve a good seated position. And to achieve a good seated position, a good chair, we talked about that. The other things is, if you're working from a laptop, it's all good and fine. A lot of laptops now have a really nice size screen. I use one with about a 15-inch monitor, which is actually pretty decent. It's not the massive one that a lot of designers like to use, but separate keyboard, separate mouse are critical with your in conjunction to your laptop, because otherwise you're hunched over and it's not really that comfortable. Long term, you're going to feel discomfort both in your lower back and in your upper mid spine around your shoulder blades. And so that's one way to not only feel better, but also be a little bit more productive. And sometimes, well, why do you feel worse at the end of the day? And I guess the question is, I'm not sure of the context, but if we're tired, if our bodies are torqued and tense, we're naturally not going to get the circulation. We're not going to have respiration if we don't have good seated posture. So actually, we're not getting as much oxygen to our brains if we're hunched forward over a laptop computer. So we are going to tend to feel worse at the end of the day. So it's really important to have good seated posture, sit back in the chair. Like I said, if you sit forward and lean forward or hunch over a laptop, makes me look fat. So if I sit back, it takes about 20 pounds off me, and makes it look a little bit better. And same thing with watching how you work. If you're doing this with your wrists or back or doing like this, you get those wrinkles I was talking about. And remember, if nothing else, you remember, it's like wrinkles are bad. And not the ones from wisdom and experience, but the ones from awkward work positions. So we don't want to do this. So adjust your keyboard as you can, or adjust you in relationship to your keyboard, so you have straight wrist posture and just a good overall relaxed position. And because again, if our body's supported properly, then we're going to get more blood circulating out to the tissues and joints of the body. We have more oxygen going into our brains, because our lungs can work better. And that's actually going to make you feel better, especially at 3 in the afternoon when you get those 3 o'clock sleepy snoozes. And something I find is, in the middle afternoon, I like to go take my dog for a walk. He's a 70-pound Labrador Retriever, loves to get out to the parks. He's over here with me this afternoon. And I find that taking just a half an hour gives me energy. It actually helps me puzzle through if I have any problems I'm working on, or trying to figure out how to get through something. So it's really you listen to your body and try a few things, see what works. I find that a walk in a park or in the neighborhood is a lot better than a cup of coffee or a Pepsi or a Coke or something. And see, what other questions do we have? So let's see. Again, you can get help by remote assessment. That was one of the questions. And in the day now, when we have Zoom and Teams and all these other options, it makes it easy to help folks out, because a lot of times it's easier for a third party to take a look at your workstation and figure things out, because I've done thousands and thousands of assessments over the years, and a lot of times you want to make sure we start with your seated position if you're seated, and work from there. How you're sitting in the chair, how you access the keyboard, mouse, monitor, and then we'll actually look at, if you have the standing option, we'll look at that as well to see if there's something that's just not quite right. And they're fun, and you generally feel a lot better at the end of them. So we can a lot of times make a lot of simple adjustments that cost nothing. And as you saw a few examples during the session, we discussed some homemade options that people could use. So is any other questions?
All right, I think that just about wraps it up with all of our questions. Thank you so much, Tim.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me, Lisa. It's great to be part of the summit. I really appreciate it.
Sure. And we'll forward any other questions that we get on to you, Tim.
All right.
And our next session will be starting in about 20 minutes. It is Jody Thompson from Culture RX, and she will be talking about how to create a culture, creating a culture of change, I think is the name of her presentation, if I remember correctly. And this is a really good presentation for those of you to listen to who maybe, you know, are struggling with how to immerse your workforce back into the office at some point in the future. And, you know, really where to go from here in terms of trying to figure out not only how to get results now while everyone's working remotely, but also, you know, how you're going to measure that in the future, because things have been kind of turned upside down. So definitely sign into that one, especially if you're considering things like a flexible work environment, or maybe making some of the working from home policies, you know, different in the future. So look for that in about 20 minutes. You can watch it on the summit page, or you can watch it on our Facebook or YouTube channels, and you can follow along in chat in all of our social on all of our social pages as well. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in 20 minutes.